Okay, again, there is the top one is commission, and then they have an executive committee, and then they have another four subsidiary bodies. Number one, the general subject committees, where these committees sometimes referred to as a horizontal, which this committee establish standards and guidelines applicable to all food. It's very general. Where the commodity communities is sometimes known as a vertical, which prepare standards for specific commodities. And we have what we call as FAO, WHO coordinating communities, through which regions or groups of countries that coordinate food standard activities in the region, including the development of regional standards. And another subsidiary bodies is a ad hoc intergovernmental task force, which is this task force which are time limited, and it prepares standards and guidelines on specific issues. It means that if there is specific issues which are limited time, and there will be a ad hoc intergovernmental task force. And this each committee is hosted by a member country, which is responsible for the cost of its maintenance and administration. After this, we look at the each committee, who is the hosted country. Okay. So under the general subject committee, there are a lot of codex committee. Okay, so they have Codex Committee on Food Additives, CCFA, Codex Committee on Contaminants in Food, CCCF, Food Hygiene, CCFH, on the Food Import and Export Inspection and Certification System, CCFICS, and also Codex Committee on Food Labeling, which is CCFL. Also, they have a Codex Committee on General Principles, on the method analysis and sampling, nutrition foods for special dietary users, for the pesticide, and also for the residues of veterinary drugs in foods. So these are all the general subject committees. So again, under these general subject committees is form a food standards for applicable to all food. It's a guideline that applicable to all foods. And what is the function of this general subject committee? They would develop all-embracing concept and also principles that apply to food in general, specific food or group of food. And this general subject committee also endorse or review the relevant provision in the Codex Commodity Standards and develop major recommendations pertaining to the health and safety of consumers. The Codex Community General Committee General Subjects responsible for dealing with procedure and general matters of the Commission. Number two, the next subsidiary bodies is known as a commodity committees. It's different from the general just now. These committees is very specific standard for each commodity. For example, Codex Committee on Fats and Oil, CCFO, Codex Committee on Fish and Fishery Products, CCFFP, on Fresh Fruit and Vegetables, CCFV, for the milk and meat product, CCMMP, and also Codex Committee on Processed Fruit and Vegetables. They have a different, they have a fresh food and it has a processed food. They have for the pulses, cereals, legumes, for the cocoa products. This is falls under communities. The next subsidiary bodies is FAO, WHO, coordinating communities. So it's different from the general and community communities. These coordinating communities have no standing host country. Okay. So there are 6 coordinating communities. For example, one each for the following regions. They have from Africa. Okay, they have a Codex Community Asia. They have a coordinating communities Euro. Codex coordinating committees from Latin America and Caribbean. Coordinating communities from Near East, and also coordinating communities from North Africa and the South Pacific. So they have no standing host country. It has in each of the regions. So the host country for original coordinating committee tends to rotate amongst the member of the region. Yeah. And this host country should have the capacity to provide logistic and also administrative support necessary when organizing an international meeting. So this is the FAO, WHO coordinating committees. So the host country for every regional, this may rotate among the members of the region. Okay, the last one, the fourth subsidiary bodies is an ad hoc intergovernmental task force. So as I mentioned, it's a limited period of time and is not normally exceeding 4 years. This task force, as in the case of the horizontal and vertical committees, these Codex task force are hosted by a member country. So how do we want to decide which are the most important communities for our country? Is it the general community? Is it the commodity community? Or is it the FAO, WHO coordinating community? Most of developing countries and countries with small economies, they can't afford to participate in the work of all the Codex activities. Therefore, each country should prioritize and focus its resources to ensure that it is involved in discussing and developing standards of the greatest national significance. So just focus on the national needs instead of the worldwide. Yeah. And how we want to determine subsidiary bodies, which one we want to involve. First, we want to look at what are the country's significant food safety and health issue. Number two, what are the issues most relevant to the consumer? Number three, what are the primary agri-food export industries contributing to the country's economy? For example, if Malaysia, we are the agri-food exports for palm oil. So maybe we can go as a commodity committees, for example. And what are the major agri-food imports? Also, if you want to determine the subsidy bodies, what are the agri-food priorities of most relevance to the domestic procedures? And also, we want to look at, okay, which Codex Committee elaborates standards, guidelines, or related texts pertaining to the areas identified above. And also, the last, we want to determine the subsidy bodies, we want to ensure what are the resources. For example, the time, the money that are available for the country to commit to the Codex program. So we have to look at the strength of our own country. After that, we can decide whether which bodies that we want to be under the commission. So again, they have a commission. Under commission, they have the executive committee. There's one chairperson and 3 vice chairperson, and they have the secretary. The secretary is from the FAO. And they have what we call just now as a general committees, where general committees is more on horizontal, where they have a general principles. The host country is France. For example, food labeling, the host country is Canada, for hygiene, United States, and etc. Okay. For vertical commodity committees, we can see here the fats and oils. Okay, what we call the commodity committees, the host is from Malaysia, the fats and oil. Fruits and vegetables, Mexico. Processed fruit and vegetables, United States. And we have what we call as sugars, United Kingdom, and etc. And we have the FAO, WHO coordinating communities. Okay, and every country they have their own host. For example, Asia is Indonesia, and of course they will rotate every year based on each region. And the fourth one, we have what we call as an ad hoc intergovernmental task force. For example, there's an issues in terms of animal feeding among the cow in Switzerland. That's why they need to have a ad hoc task force in order to look at the food standards in terms of animal feed. Then, in summary, The Codex Alimentarius Commission consists of 4 main organization elements. Number 1 is a Codex Commission, which is they are the decision makers of body of the Joint FAO WHO First Standards Program. And number 2, we have what we call an Executive Committee. This Executive Committee is the executive organ of the Commission. It is responsible to manage the standard development process and for making recommendations about the general direction of the Commission work. And then they have a Codex Secretariat, which is consists of the Secretary of the Commission, appointed by the DG of FAO and WHO, as well as the other staff to assist the Secretary. And we have the subsidiary bodies. So subsidiary bodies, they have 4 subsidiary bodies. Number 1 is the General Subject Committee. They have a commodity committees, FAO, WHO coordinating committees, and the 4th one is ad hoc intergovernmental